The diplomatic chamber hovered in weightless silence, suspended between two warring empires. The Zha'rethi delegation arrived first, 6 towering figures with metallic skin that shimmered like mercury under the artificial lighting. Their elongated heads bent in slow, deliberate movements, each gesture considered a language of its own. At their center stood Speaker Zha'rethi, his voice low and resonant, vibrating in the bones rather than the ears. Human Ambassador Lin entered behind a veil of composed steel. His black uniform bore no insignia, only the polished chrome badge of the Terran Confederacy. He bowed slightly, not out of respect, but precision. "Let's talk," he said. Zha'rethi did not respond in words. A soft psychic pulse rippled from the Zha'rethi, a signal picked up by hidden sensors and translated for Lin's earpiece. "Your kind burns hot and bright. Brief. Dangerous. You wish to talk. Speak before you ignite." Lin's lips tightened. He had read the files. The Zha'rethi believed time was a weapon. To rush was to lose. They took years to decide, centuries to act. Yet in the last 5 months, 3 Terran colonies had been attacked, 1 annihilated without a trace. Each time, the Zha'rethi denied involvement. Each time, humanity held its breath. Back on Earth, the Confederacy broadcast only vague updates. Peace talks are ongoing. But in orbit, the truth boiled. Terran warships drifted in tight, silent formations just outside sensor range. Their guns were charged. Their AI cores were primed for immediate execution. Orders remained: hold until confirmation. Do not fire unless fired upon. And yet, every captain knew, instinctively, that war had already begun. Lin activated a holomap between them. It displayed contested space, dozens of outposts, trade lanes, mining routes. "We want a ceasefire. Independent inspections. Shared patrols. Our offer is clear." Zha'rethi raised a single finger. A pulse of red light flickered across the map, each Terran proposal dismissed, not with words, but with finality. "Your offers are theater," Zha'rethi replied. "Your fleets grow. Your probes enter our silence zones. Your presence is a threat." Lin leaned forward. "And yours isn't." 3 colonies. 1 gone completely. Zha'rethi stared through him. "You breed too quickly. Expand without caution. Our patience is not weakness, human. It is mercy." In the depths of space, a Terran stealth drone recorded a surge of energy from a Zha'rethi listening post. Its signal went dark 30 seconds later. Somewhere aboard the dreadnought TSV Horizon, a red light blinked silently on a console. Data queued. Action pending. Back in the chamber, Lin's voice was steady. "You're pushing us. We are reminding you," Zha'rethi pulsed, "that fire does not threaten stone." There it was. A threat veiled in prophecy. Lin looked at the alien delegation and saw not diplomats, but the edge of an empire that had decided humanity had grown too bold. He closed his briefcase, not out of surrender, but in quiet acknowledgement. "If diplomacy fails," he said, standing, "we'll stop waiting." Zha'rethi's next pulse was calm, almost amused. "We are already advancing." Lin walked out, pulse steady. Above them, in silent orbit, humanity waited. But not for long. Captain Aria Mendez sat alone, fingers wrapped around a small metal box that had survived 2 deployments and 1 funeral. Inside was her father's final letter, written days before the Kiros incident. The words were clean, measured, but not hollow. "We don't start wars, Aria. But if they come for us, we don't hesitate. We finish it." She had read it 100 times, but today it felt heavier. The diplomatic talks were stalling. Everyone felt it, the pause before something breaks. The crew of the TSV Horizon moved with practiced quiet, eyes locked on screens, minds already calculating what would happen if the signal came. Orders weren't needed. The Confederacy didn't need to tell them what to expect anymore. Across the decks, soldiers checked gear in silence. Combat suits lined the walls. Guns were loaded and reloaded, not out of necessity but ritual. Some watched news reports, politicians posturing, analysts guessing, the public praying. None of it mattered. They all knew the Zha'rethi weren't stalling, they were probing, waiting for weakness. Private Rico paced the launch bay. "Think they'll actually go through with it?" he asked. No one answered. Not because they didn't hear him, but because the answer was already known. Humans had waited for months. Waited after the first skirmish. Waited after the colony vanished. Waited through the lies, the evasions, the misunderstandings. Patience wasn't a virtue anymore. It was a weapon. Arya stood and addressed her squad. "Today isn't about being ready. It's about remembering who we are. They think we're short-lived. Impulsive. But we adapt. Faster than they can predict. We bleed, but we learn. We break, but we come back harder. They think they know us, but they don't understand what humans do when we run out of time." They nodded, not out of duty, but belief. There was no fear anymore, only resolve. The kind built over generations of pushing back darkness, from Earth's oldest wars to the black void of the stars. A low chime echoed through the warship, classified signal received. Arya turned to the console. The message was brief, encrypted, but unmistakable. "Prepare for hostile extraction of Asset Lin. Rules of engagement lifted upon confirmation. Do not initiate. Be ready to end. No fanfare. No speeches. Just cold, precise instructions." Arya closed the message and spoke only 2 words, "Lock load." No questions followed. In orbit near Zha'rethi space, a Terran probe detected gravitational disturbances, Zha'rethi warships in formation. Not patrolling. Advancing. Humanity wasn't surprised. The Zha'rethi believed patience was dominance. But they hadn't yet seen what happens when humans stop waiting. Inside the command deck, Arya watched the timer counting down on her display. Operation Iron Veil was near. The line had been drawn, not with ink, but silence. And silence was about to break. The negotiation room stood empty. No closing statement. No handshake. The Zha'rethi had left without ceremony, their departure a declaration louder than any war drum. They hadn't come to talk. They came to measure. And they'd decided humanity had nothing left to say. Ambassador Lin's final transmission was a simple phrase buried inside routine diplomatic data. 3 words: "We tried. Proceed." That was all the Confederacy needed. On board the TSV Horizon, red directives replaced standby orders. Operation Iron Veil initiated. Human Marines moved without hesitation, silent professionals trained for this exact contingency. No panic. No chaos. Just movement. Within minutes, a strike team was en route to extract Lin from the now hostile station. Their route planned months ago. Every corridor mapped. Every contingency calculated. Above them, invisible in the void, Terran stealth frigates broke formation and positioned around the Zha'rethi fleet. Their weapons were charged, targeting solutions already running. These weren't reactionary forces. This was the sharp edge of a plan humanity hoped never to use, but never stopped preparing. The Zha'rethi, for all their age and wisdom, underestimated the species they'd dismissed as impatient. They mistook silence for indecision. They mistook diplomacy for weakness. They mistook the Terran habit of restraint for lack of resolve. They were wrong. Aboard the Zha'rethi flagship, sensor operators began detecting gravitational fluctuations. Brief, precise, and out of place. Before they could finish the report, one of their cruisers lost power, hacked via an onboard drone seeded during an earlier peacekeeping joint mission. Its thrusters fired without command, spiraling it into the path of another vessel. No explosion. Just confusion. Just the first domino. The extraction team breached the diplomatic station's lower levels with 0 warning. Zha'rethi guards, unaccustomed to suddenness, hesitated a moment too long. That was all it took. The humans didn't speak. They didn't shout commands. They moved like water down a slope, inevitable, unstoppable. Ambassador Lin met them in the corridor, already moving. He'd known the moment the Zha'rethi walked out, it was over. "You waited long enough," he said. Arya's voice crackled over the comms. "We don't wait anymore." In space, Terran ships decloaked all at once. Dozens. No flourish. No countdown. Just presence. Their weapons were live. Their targeting arrays locked. The Zha'rethi fleet reeled not from fire, but the sudden realization that they were surrounded. Then the first shot was fired not by humans, but by a Zha'rethi commander, reacting out of instinct or fear. A plasma beam seared across space. It missed. The Confederacy responded instantly. The return fire wasn't flashy. It was precise, mathematical. Terran railguns tore through 2 Zha'rethi hulls before the third could raise shields. Electronic warfare units blinded sensors. AI-assisted drones jammed communications. Within minutes, half the alien fleet was in disarray. On the station, Arya's team secured the evac point. Lin stepped into the shuttle, uninjured, but with eyes that had seen too much. He didn't look back. The negotiations were over. Now, the response would speak louder than any words ever could. The war began without ceremony. No declarations. No warnings. One moment, the galaxy teetered on the edge. The next, it fell. The Zha'rethi, arrogant in their age, believed they understood war. What they didn't understand was what war meant to humanity. On every Terran ship, orders became instinct. The TSV Horizon launched its squadrons in perfect silence. Fighters dispersed like fragments of a shattered star, their courses pre-programmed, each pilot focused not on survival, but completion. Mission over life. Victory over pride. That's how humans fought when it mattered. The Zha'rethi fleet tried to recover formation. Too slow. Terran vessels moved with chaotic precision, erratic enough to defy prediction, coordinated enough to devastate. Artificial intelligence handled calculations that alien minds could barely comprehend. Within 10 minutes, 4 Zha'rethi cruisers had lost main propulsion. 2 more were floating carcasses, their life support severed by pinpoint strikes that avoided overkill. In the diplomatic station's upper ring, emergency lights flickered as power failed. The Marines had already gone. The humans left no trail, no signature. Just absence. The kind that follows surgical action. Zha'rethi guards stumbled through smoke and confusion, trying to interpret the speed, the accuracy, the audacity. Lin sat quietly aboard the extraction shuttle, watching Earth grow larger on the screen. "We never wanted this," he said into the silence. "But you pushed until there was no room left to pull." He wasn't speaking to anyone in particular. Just voicing the truth. Back on Earth, citizens watched the live data streams. Not visuals, those were classified, but status reports, encrypted call signs, glowing green indicators blinking faster than comprehension. Then came the official message, read in a calm, unwavering tone: Terran assets secure. Strategic control achieved. Defensive actions underway. No further negotiations scheduled. People didn't cheer. They didn't riot. They stood in silence. Some cried. Not out of fear, but release. Months of anxiety, of lies and waiting, had snapped in a single instant. The galaxy finally understood, humans had limits. They just took longer to reach them than anyone expected. Above the battleground, Zha'rethi Command tried a final maneuver, retreat. But the hyperspace corridor was blocked. The Terrans hadn't just fought back. They'd planned to win before the first shot. Jammers locked down escape routes. Decoy signals scattered responses. The Zha'rethi weren't just losing, they were learning. Too late. Captain Arya Mendez stood in silence as the last hostile vessel powered down. Her crew didn't cheer. They only nodded. The job was done. That was enough. Later, long after the battle ended, a single encrypted message was sent from the TSV Horizon to every diplomatic channel in known space. 4 words. We waited. No more. That was the last message humanity sent for a week. Not because there was nothing to say, but because now, the galaxy was finally listening.